Hello! And welcome to episode 39 of Modern Media Review, the podcast that only gives out awards on the Australian-style points-based system, and no one qualifies this year. They're all too weak. I'm Robin Gibson.
And I'm Sean Gollogly.
And we're back after a slight delay due to circumstances. You know the sort of thing. Circumstances. Events.
Well, a bit like Radio 1 DJ Greg James, who didn't make it for the 6:30 slot breakfast show after partying all night at the Brits, then claimed it was a stunt and he'd been kidnapped by a mystery celebrity.
That's weird, because that's exactly what happened to me.
And me.
But we're still back doing this at 6:30am. And we're still on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts. It's a bit delayed, just like this one for some reason, but they do get there eventually. And Apple, don't forget Apple, the original home of podcasts, I think. And we've got a website, modernmediareview.com. So like, visit, thank us, whatever you like, really. We can be found all over the place. And you mentioned this guy, who I don't know this story about Greg James, but he had some problem after the Brits. Well, so did I. Because I'm never really satisfied by anything, but particularly by the Brits. I mean, what did you think of it, Sean?
They were celebrating 40 years of the Brits this year, and that programme felt it was about 40 years long.
Yeah, it was very long.
It was.
I mean, a lot of people think the Brits is just a sort of overstuffed playground for the sort of idiocracy, stuffed with pat music and meaningless gestures and overwatered celebrities and entitled, untalented bozos, really. Like, for example, Jack Whitehall, who is he going to do this every year? He was worse than last year.
It was extraordinary how bad he was this year. First of all, I mean, there must have been a nod to 40 years ago when Noel Edmonds presented the first one in a black tuxedo and was just as bland as Jack Whitehall back then. But the weirdest thing was watching Whitehall's face, because the auto cue was obviously miles away, and he had this sort of like 1,000-yard stare where he was trying to read it, and he was gradually going cross-eyed about 30 seconds into every segment.
I thought they'd given him some temazepam or something. I mean,
no, I think that was the script writers.
He still did a bit of smut, didn't he, like last year when he was sitting down with Lizzo.
Oh.
But it was a bit sanitised and bland, I thought. I mean, he said, like, One Direction, and he announced them as, in a sort of sonorous voice, is that the word for it? One of the greatest bands of all time. And he was so straight, I couldn't tell if he was joking. It's like when GQ put Rommel on their list of best dressed men. I mean, were they being serious or not?
No, I think they're being postmodern, Robin.
But Jack Whitehall's not. He's pre-modern, isn't he?
Yes.
And then he started saying crappy stuff like Billie Eilish. He went, she's era-defining. What the fuck does that mean? Ponzi Coffee and Boris Johnson, who we'll get on to later, they're era-defining as well, aren't they?
They are, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, most relevant. I mean, what does it mean to call an artist relevant?
Well, I suppose better than being irrelevant.
Well, I once interviewed Jim Kerr years ago from Simple Minds, and I was just asking him if things were still relevant, and he went, relevant to what? We're relevant to our fans. It doesn't really mean anything. And then he called Dave powerful and provocative. You can say that about virtually anyone, from Nigel Farage to Gandhi, couldn't you? Or Rommel.
Yeah, I mean, but it was all just dribbling out of his mouth. I mean, there's no sort of... it doesn't sound sincere at all, do you know what I mean? He definitely has got a fixation on Harry Styles.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Harry Styles. That was just that set piece they did, chatting away to Lizzo and everyone pretending they fancied each other. It was all a bit sad.
Yes. Isn't it weird for a stand-up comedian who you'd imagine must be pretty sharp? He was absolutely useless when they went off script.
I forget he's a stand-up comedian. He must be like Frankie Boyle and have 10 writers and 9 of them get kidnapped by some celebrities or something. Stormzy went, most important artist of his generation. I mean, another bland statement.
Well, it sort of sums up the Brits a little bit, doesn't it? Sort of bland.
But yet, we say that. Now, isn't it also sort of a bit of a reflection of cultural modern Britain?
Wow.
I sort of thought,
okay.
Well, I was looking at it, you've got the music and it's sort of in two halves in it. You've got the bland stuff like Lewis Capaldi, which is not like his brilliant actual comedy persona
Oh,
at all.
the guy's a genius. He's in the wrong
He
profession.
is. And you've got Harry Styles and Mabel, who Mabel's all right, but she's Nina Cherry's daughter.
Yeah, which I didn't realise until about halfway through.
Oh, did you know?
No.
Oh, she's quite well known, Sean.
Well,
some of these people who were on the Brits are quite big stars, you know.
It's funny that, isn't it? All I thought about was Mabel opened the show and she was rocking a pair of Timberlands, and I was just thinking that is interesting as we're sort of like celebrating 40 years of the Brits, because the last time I saw Timberlands being rocked, I think, was by Big Fun on Blame It on the Boogie.
Well, there's that bland kind of poppy and maudlin ballad stuff, but then you've got the tough stuff like Lizzo and then Dave and Stormzy.
Yes.
And you're thinking, would any of them, particularly what Dave did, have made anywhere near the Brits a few years ago? I doubt it.
Well, I think it was only, was it 2015 when they were calling it Brits So White, weren't they?
Yeah, but what year, I can't remember what year it was, but when Kanye brought on all the grime kids who just kind of rounded up with a few phone calls, and the whole nation got upset and people were ringing up saying they felt very threatened by this musical performance.
I think people in Sevenoaks or maybe the Isle of Wight might have got upset.
Skepta used a phone clip of someone ringing up, telling how they felt intimidated. He used it on a shutdown single. But I mean, that was chaotic and unexpected, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Stormzy's thing was like a kind of...
It was a nod to it.
Well, it was like a Hollywood version of it.
Yeah.
It was so fantastic. I mean, it was a fantastic medley of his hits and stuff, but it was so glitzy and glammy that almost the message of what Stormzy's achieved got a little bit lost. Or some people might say that I'm wrong about that, but I thought it was a Royal Command performance job.
Do you know what ruined it with Stormzy for me? When he went up to pick up one of his awards, I don't know if he got more than one, but he did that immediate thing which kills it for me totally, is he started thanking the Lord for it.
Well, I know, but he's quite gospel influenced.
Yeah, I can't be having it.
I hate all that stuff.
Totally ruins it. I mean, I remember...
I don't mind the influence in the music, but people thanking God.
QPR in the 90s beat Man United live on TV. Never going to happen again, so... Rare ray of sunshine for me as a QPR fan. Immediately the hat-trick scorer comes on afterwards and says it was all down to God. Well, didn't he have something to do with it, putting the ball in the back of the net? And didn't Stormzy do the lyrics and the music?
I love it. It's like when someone recovers from a light, they have an operation for, they have a heart transplant or something, head transplant or something, and they go, oh, it's a miracle, and I'm going, well, sorry, but that's completely the wrong analysis of the situation. It's actually a very good bit of work by some expert surgeons. Utter nonsense.
It is totally bizarre.
Billie Eilish, I kind of like that because she just thanked Polydor and Interscope and then her mum. That's the right music biz order, isn't it?
Do you know what ruined Billie Eilish's song?
Everything was ruined for you, wasn't it? You're so negative.
It was, massively. It was these paid kids up at the front to whoop up and make a noise, because it was a quite ballady start to this James Bond theme, and all you can hear is these teenage kids down in the pit, obviously paid to be there to make it sound like everyone's having a great time, and they're all whooping and hollering over it.
Well, it's the Brits, and I'm going to give Billie Eilish a bit of credit, because although she's again very kind of downbeat, and she's not as bland as people like Capaldi, she's pleasantly weird, actually. I'd rather have given the award to FKA Twigs, who I'm sure you're a big fan of as well.
Absolutely.
But it was never in doubt. But what I was saying about sort of modern Britain and the controversy and all that, Stormzy may not have been chaotic, but he still put a big point across, as did Dave, who's been all over the news for his sort of extended version of Black. I mean, I saw this tweet here from a guy called Leon Leslie Dolby. He's a conservative, he's 18, he's got 30 followers, and he's an aspiring geoscientist. I don't know why people bother doing these things or even do anything on Twitter, but he says this mere artist, that's in inverted commas, known as Stormzy, is profoundly irrational.
I like that.
His songs ultimately preach hatred against the democratic elected government of our United Kingdom. I can say with utter certainty that I'm not a fan.
So he's not endorsing him.
People are still getting riled up, even if it's only 18-year-old conservatives.
I tell you what, this Leon Leslie Dobby should do is he should get in contact with Mr. Cummings and become a 10 Downing Street advisor.
He'd be ideal.
He would be.
Because I think that anyone who believes in eugenics would have had a bit of a problem with the Brits, wouldn't they? Like that bloke who, we're not going to mention his name. I think I'm going into the New Zealand Prime Minister camp here and saying no chance mentioning that bloke's name that I've forgotten anyway, because he's the ultimate prick. How did he ever get the job? Well, we know how he got the job, don't we?
Well,
Dominic Cummings, recruiting weirdos.
Exactly.
What's all that about? How do you put someone in charge of the government and then ask them to recruit weirdos and misfits?
Yeah, very clever. I did apply myself.
Yeah. And then, if Stormzy got him wound up, I mean, we don't need to go into Dave. Dave's performance was epic. It really was. It's been discussed all over the media.
Calling Johnson a racist.
Yeah, and Priti Patel had to go on to the radio.
To say he wasn't.
To say he wasn't.
Which I thought was great.
He's absolutely not a racist.
Definitely. Some of his best friends are not from Surrey.
Some of his best friends are me and Sajid Javid. That should do it, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Then every time someone comes on, and there's been loads of chat shows on the radio about this, it's great because it's got a lot of young people phoning up, and they've rung up and said, but he is the racist, and then the host will go, what's your evidence? And then they roll out the Pickaninny's letterbox, his watermelon smells, and they go, oh, yes, but he did say that a long time ago.
And I'm not comparing Boris Johnson to Hitler, but that would be like saying, well, Mein Kampf, he did write that in jail when he was a lot younger,
And he was unhappy in those days.
Yeah, he was.
He was an unsettled adolescent. He couldn't possibly have carried those views through to adulthood.
He fell in with the wrong crowd.
I mean, my old man's in an elderly ward at the moment, and some of the stuff that comes out in there is quite incredible. And let me tell you, that's what those people really think. They might not have said it. They might not have said it for 50 years, but they're saying it now.
Well, I'll tell you what, half the music execs who were in the posh seats at the Brits, I think they look like they came out of some geriatric ward.
But there's a lot of middle-aged people running the music business.
Yeah, obviously. Doing well on it as well, apparently. Apparently you can't make any money out of records anymore.
Yeah, it's all a bit confusing, that. I thought that it was a bad night for the Tories, wasn't it? Because, a bit like that George Osborne at the Olympics when he got booed, isn't it? Because poor old Theresa May, who you'd think had enough of a kicking now, got another one from Tyler, the Creator, because she banned him from the country a few years ago, like as if he was some sort of video nasty. But in fact, it's just the usual confusion of people like Theresa May confusing art with reality.
Yes.
So he gave her a bit of a chibbing on the mic, and good for him. I hope she was watching it. I don't think she would.
I doubt it.
Probably watching Songs of Praise and Catch Up.
They did. You must have watched that 40 years of the Brits, that again went on for about 40 years.
I watched 20 years of it and then I fell asleep.
Well, they had a segment in there from Thatcher, and they were talking about music, and did she like pop music? And she thought about it and sort of nodded her head and said, yes. And particularly that one, how did it go? How much is that doggy in the window?
No.
Yeah, I swear to God. Did you not tape it? Or record it, I should say. It's showing me age.
Thatcher had a great sense of humour. She's joking.
I tell you what, she hasn't got as great a sense of humour as Lewis Capaldi.
No, I know, and also, he's actually caused some controversy as well. Not in the same way as Dave, because he was swigging from a bottle of Buckfast, which is up round this neck of the woods is associated almost entirely with violent crime. As you said, he must have had them shipped in. I doubt if they were on the cocktail menu.
Just a couple of bottles of Bucky to go with it, which is quite funny, really, because he also had, the first time he went up to collect an award, he had a little stubby of lager, didn't he? Also not something you'd think you'd get on the rider. No,
but he obviously likes a drink. The thing about Buckfast is, up here, like this town, Paisley, the Paisley Daily Express, quite often there'll be a crime story on the front page that's illustrated by a picture of a Buckfast bottle. The last one I read, a couple of kids had sat at home drinking vodka and Bucky, walked out, and before they got to the end of the street, they'd mugged someone and then stabbed him. One said he didn't know the other was going to stab him, and he said he didn't know what he'd done at all. And the judge in court, when the case came up, said this doleful expression, yet again, I find before me a case involving Buckfast, knives and violence. I don't think people down in England quite get how powerful a symbol it is. So Capaldi's been hauled through the media saying you're encouraging blah, blah, blah. encouraging people to get drunk, I guess.
But, I mean, he was quite funny because he didn't actually say anything at all when he first went up for the award. And he was a bit more emotional and tired the second time.
The first time it was blanked out because he just walked up and said, "Thank you very fucking much." And it must be had some delay on it.
Did you see him on that Graham Norton a few weeks ago? Massively funny.
Oh, hilarious.
If you think...
That's a lot of bums on seats and a lot more money in my pocket, thank you very much.
Fucking pocket. You wouldn't have known that by the sort of type of song that he sings, because if there was an award for most vomit-inducing ballad, it would have been a close-run thing between Capaldi and Harry Styles. I mean...
Oh, give it to Harry Styles, mate. Give it to Harry Styles.
Maudling dirge, that was, wasn't it?
It's this modern romantic songwriting. It doesn't use metaphor or any interesting language. It's just, I love you and roses are red and the sky is blue stuff. All the good wordsmitheries passed into the hands of the rappers, which was shown by Lizzo and Stormzy and Dave.
Basically, yeah.
But his final second, as you said, his second acceptance speech for the, I've forgotten what, never mind the awards, I can't remember who won what.
Bruce Springsteen was on a shortlist for one of them.
That was the weirdest shortlist. Bruce Springsteen against Tyler the Creator against Burna Boy.
Totally mental.
Well, you can't judge the three against each other.
I was half expecting to see Kate Bush on Best Female, you know?
The speech that Capaldi made about how the song wasn't about his ex who's on Love Island.
That was brilliant.
But it was about his dead grandmother, and he thanked his granny for dying. And I thought, what's he done here is very profound. He's linked Love Island, sex, and death, which, let's be frank, is a controversial mixture in the week of the Brits, isn't it?
Well, it's all a bit Dostoevsky.
And yet he was funny rather than just... it could have been horrible.
But he's naturally very funny. He was funnier than Jack Whitehall.
Miles, he should host it next
He
year.
should host it with a bottle of Bucky.
He wouldn't stand up for long enough. Now, we've got to say, right, well, apart from a few mentions of Lizzo and Billie Eilish, we have been discussing blokes here. There was a huge controversy this year about diversity. Not enough women nominated except in the female categories. And I noticed that Foles, who won the group, and Stormzy both made sure to sort of big up the sisters, didn't they?
They did, absolutely.
Yeah. But I say, never mind diversity for women, will no one think of the groups, or even women in groups are finished, mate.
Dead, mate.
The people in the groups were just all useless, and included Coldplay.
I couldn't believe they were nominated again. Haven't they been nominated for the last 40 years?
Yeah. Who listens to groups? The whole look of the all-male group with guitar, bass, drums, and some cunt singing, as my departed mate Tommy used to say, looks as out of date as George Formby with a ukulele, doesn't it?
Well, Jack Whitehall did big up a big band, One Direction.
They're a bit marginalised with brutality, these groups. Women should be glad the same thing never happened to them. And talking of groups, right? I don't know about you, but I used to be a big Faces fan, Rod Stewart's old band from the 70s. And I kept being told the Faces were going to be playing at the Brits. And then at the end, it was introduced as Rod Stewart.
How many of them are left?
3.
Okay.
But it was introduced as Rod Stewart with the London Symphony Orchestra. And I felt like you know that episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes to that funeral and he gets really sad. They ask why, and he says they told me there'd be catering. It was well that they told me there'd be the Faces. But there were in the end. But Rod looks. This sums up that Rod looks like the guys in my dad's elderly ward. He should not be on stage. But even worse, he thinks he looks okay.
Well,
I hope he's not incontinent.
Oh, definitely. They've got their Athens pads on underneath, I'd imagine. And Ronnie Wood was back on it. Famously, again, in this, 40 years of the Brits, they showed when he threw water over, when Brandon Block stormed the stage. What would have been great is if Brandon Block had been brought back to storm the stage while they were doing their Faces medley.
Well, or Jarvis Cocker.
Yeah.
Or the whole lot of them, really. Ron Wood's he presented one of the awards and he made this speech and he said, "Yeah, loving it here, man. Positive vibes, warm people." And I thought, he's not been around the music business very much, has he?
But, there must have been people, not even of a certain age, anyone under the age of sort of 25 who just thought, who is he?
Well, they probably just switched off when they heard Rod Stewart being announced. And as for the actual awards, does it really matter who won what?
Not really. I can't remember who won half of them.
Well, I wrote them all down.
Oh.
Lewis Capaldi won Artist of the Year. New Artist of the Year.
Who would you have given it to?
Of the list, Dave, but I do find Dave a bit too earnest. That sounds really unfashionable because he's been taken so seriously, but I get into grime really because it had a bit of oomph about it.
Well, maybe he should take a leaf out of the jazz hand crew, turn that smile, turn that frown upside down,
Well, I thought he should have got that anyway, but Lewis Capaldi...
Maybe start singing a few Lloyd Webber numbers,
I can't be bothered going through this list, mate. I've written down Group of the Year Falls and then I put no opinion, oh shit, no one cares.
Yeah, fair enough. I was surprised that Ellie Goulding turned up. I mean, does she make music anymore or just present awards?
No, she's still about, isn't she?
And Courtney Love as well.
She wasn't there.
Yeah, she presented an award.
Did she?
Yeah.
I must have dropped off at that point. The show's too long, a bit like this podcast.
Yes. And here's looking forward to more Jack Whitehall next year.
Well, they can't have him again. That was just appalling. No, and next year we'll be replaced by someone else as well.
We'll be kidnapped.
Coming up with something a bit funny. And in the meantime, I think we should call it a night.
Okay.
And say thanks for listening.
Cheers for listening.
And we'll be back sooner than last time.
We were quarantined by coronavirus. We should really let that one out there for a start.
You can't start making the excuses up at the end. Now you've had half an hour to think about it.
Well, I stuck another one in earlier on. Anyway, that's enough of that.
That's enough of that, Jesus. And we'll do a real gambling review soon as well.
Oh, yeah,
and another modern media review. And let's hope Paris Hilton's cookery show picks up. Because I do feel a bit for her, and I don't think our podcast helped her much.
No.
And that's it. So it's good night from me. Good night.
And it's good night from him.
Right? Yes, that's a very original. Cheers, folks. Bye.